I want you to do me a favor, okay? Just for a moment. I want you to imagine being fully aware, fully awake, but locked inside of your own body. You see, you can hear, you feel, but you can't speak. You can't say, I'm hungry, I'm cold. You can't say, I hurt. You can't say, stop. No. You can't say, I love you. Your body, it sometimes moves without your consent, sometimes forcing you to hurt yourself, sometimes forcing you to hurt the people who you love and need the most in this world. And when that happens, you're met with anger, sometimes fear, sometimes frustration, sometimes tears. But the worst feeling is the feeling of shame that you can't get away from because you don't have the words to explain. You can't apologize. You can't make them understand that you can't control it. I mean, honestly, even if you did have the words, how can you explain something that you don't even understand? And so, you live every single day of your life perpetually misunderstood. No matter how hard you try to connect with the world around you, with the people you love, there's something that's like blocking you, something in your way. And your words, they sound right in your mind, but when they come out, they sound like grunts and screams. And the harder you try, the more disrupted your speech becomes until finally you just stop. You don't like the way people look at you. You don't like the way people laugh at you. So you just become silent. And day by day, you lose yourself inside yourself, retreating further and further into the shell that everyone sees and everyone judges, but no one truly has taken the time to understand. I need you to imagine living like this every day. I need you to intimate what it's like to experience the world never being experienced in return. I need you to want desperately to be known while being trapped behind a unbreakable wall of silence, because this is the reality that many children with autism face. And as parents, as loved ones, as caregivers, educators, we honestly cannot afford to fail to see this. We cannot afford to fail to empathize with this, because if we do, we condemn these innocent children to torment and devastation, to the worst possible punishment that they never deserved: isolation. Okay, so I came across this video on my feed, and as the mother of a child with autism, I knew I had to respond. This isn't the only video that I've seen that kind of pulled me in a way where I wanted to kind of say something that might help or give a different perspective, because I didn't appreciate the ways in which it framed children with autism. And everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And I certainly didn't make this content because I wanted to admonish or shame a family that's clearly in crisis. I understand. I understand. But more than that, I feel as though, and I'm certainly not unique in this way, but I feel as though my perspective is one where I see this experience as a true test of the mantle of parenthood. Do you understand what I'm saying? In the way that, yes, Every single parent would crawl across broken glass, fight dragons, climb mountains, cross oceans for their children. But how many have to every single day? That is what the truth of parenting a child with a disability like this. I'm sure that there are many, many others, but that's the hurdle we face every day, hour to hour, moment to moment. And it is not easy. So despite how I could be perceived in the commentary that's surely to follow, what I really want to stress is that I know that it's hard. However, what we've been called to do is so much bigger than who we are. In fact, it outlives us. And that type of responsibility requires you to step up to greatness, because it is not something that will be inherent within you. It is a challenge, and you have to face it every single day. And so what I hope to do is, by addressing this video, offer some helpful information that can make you more prepared to approach it in the way that I know we all really want to. Let's get into it.
They live in constant fear of being attacked in their own home, and they are desperate. This is the story of a family struggling to cope with a child who has autism. They love him, but they are terrified for him and for each other. I have to warn you, this is a difficult story to watch.
Nathan, stop!
This is Stephanie Serenko's daily reality.
It's a fight. It's a struggle every day, just to make it through the day and to make him get through the day.
Her son Mason is 8 years old and weighs 180 pounds. She is a single mother and lives with her parents. When her father goes to work, she and her mother try to survive the day. She believes one day he will unintentionally kill her.
Yeah, I think he will. It's dangerous to be with him alone. It's hard. It's really hard.
Stephanie has had her nose broken twice and chunks of her hair pulled out.
Ducking and dodging, worrying about him hitting, pinching, biting, breaking things. It's just endless. No. Hey.
We are told this is an easy day, a 5 out of 10. Mason does go to school, but only for part of the day. She believes Mason needs to be in a group home, but he's too young. One day, she was so desperate, she called the Children's Aid Society.
On ourselves, because we didn't know what else to do.
Okay, so in my mind, this video is extremely problematic. Now, while I definitely agree, there is tremendous value in us sharing content that reveals the honest truth of some of the challenges and difficulties that come along with parenting a child who has autism. You know, we can definitely learn from one another. Definitely helps people not feel alone in the experiences that they may be struggling with, or that they're just going through, learning to adjust and adapt to, or to, properly address. Tremendous value there. However, this video in particular, the way that this young boy is being framed under this, umbrella of severe autism, which is categorically correct for the type of symptoms it seems that he's suffering from, attributed to his autism. However, the way that this labeling is used in this video, the way this child is being framed, it gives this feeling of like utter hopelessness. And it creates this false line of demarcation beyond which a child just can't be helped. I'm the type of individual where, yes, tell me it's hard. Tell me it's scary. Tell me you need help. Tell me you don't know where to start. But what you won't do, at least if you're my friend, you're not going to tell me you won't. You're not going to tell me you can't. You're not going to quit on your kid. Won't, can't, quit. These words don't exist for me, especially with regard to my children. And as your new best friend, okay? These words don't exist for you anymore either. This video is problematic because it's framing autistic children as dangerous, unmanageable, ultimately just villainizing them. And worse still, it is suggesting that parents can be outgrown by the needs of their child, which, in my opinion, is an extremely damaging narrative. To understand my view on this video, I need to break down a few things that I've learned and that, in my mind, play a huge part in raising a child with autism. I was only able to really overcome the feelings of powerlessness, of fear, worry, concern, helplessness that came along with being a parent of a child with autism when I realized that whatever I was feeling, it was absolutely nothing compared to what my child was going through every single day. Nothing, and never would be. And I swore then in that moment that while my baby might have autism, I would never let autism have my child. Because in my mind, my son was in there, trapped inside of himself, and he needed me. So naturally, my obsession became finding a way in. And that's how I want you to look at it. Don't allow autism to stand between you and your child. Okay, so first thing first, you do not have an autistic child. You have a child who has autism. I know, this may sound silly, but if you aren't already thinking this way, shifting your perspective in this way, even if it seems small, shifting your perspective in this way is going to prevent you from falling into the trap of assessing and addressing all of your child's maladaptive behaviors as symptoms of their autism. Now, this is important because a 6-year-old is still a 6-year-old. Autism doesn't change or erase that. Autistic children will go through all the stages and phases of emotional and social development that neurotypical children do. You know, I don't know about you, but I have 2 older children and I barely survived their terrible 2s. You know, there is absolutely nothing on this earth harder than having a 3-nager. Then you have the figuring 5s, the it's not fair 6s, your independent 7s, so on and so forth. Now, nonverbal children with autism may seem, and in some ways may be, stuck in younger patterns. But they too are developing identity and autonomy. Autism does not erase a child's individuality. And as parents, we have to resist interpreting every action as autism. Instead of recognizing normal childhood stages, tantrums, testing boundaries, expressing frustration, because tantrums, headbanging, meltdowns, all of these things occur in neurotypical children, right? These are not uniquely autism behaviors. And there's a real danger here. The danger is in failing to see the child as a whole person with their own desires and likes and dislikes and needs. Because when we do this, when we fail to see our children outside of their autism, it can dramatically exacerbate the maladaptive behaviors that they might be exhibiting. It can elevate the frustration and the emotional or social stress that they're experiencing, right? So I know, obviously, then you're thinking, okay, Kiera, then what does autism, do? In my mind, autism is an amplifier, right? That's what it is, an amplifier. In my mind, autism compounds normal frustrations with a whole bunch of additional barriers. The inability to communicate verbally, motor challenges, sensory overload, the feeling of being misunderstood, locked in, out of control. This creates powder keg situations. The equation: normal childhood behavior plus communication block plus environment raised to the autism. Okay? So, when you have a child who is nonverbal and has autism, it's very, very easy to adopt a pattern of anticipatory care. And I think that this happens out of love. Anticipatory care, however, can become a kind of neglect. And I was guilty of this too. Because if parents assume too much rather than engage with their child, we're not honoring their individuality or allowing them the space that they need to grow. See, parenting a child who has autism, it requires us to step into their world and at the same time pull them into ours. Without this, we risk leaving our children trapped in isolation with unexpressed pains and what I can only imagine to be the most devastating loneliness. The next component: environment, safety, and other considerations. You would be lying to me if you told me that you have never had a bad day. We have all had bad days, and we have all accidentally let that bad day drive us to snapping at someone we love unintentionally. What do you think it feels like to walk a day in your child's shoes? Imagine. And while you're imagining, I need you to keep in mind, at the front of your mind, in fact, that children feel the entire range of emotions that we do. They feel anger, fear, frustration, embarrassment, loneliness. Children with autism have to shoulder and process all of these emotions. And when they're nonverbal, they're largely doing it alone a lot of the time. So what I would say, especially if you notice that your child's behavior shifts around things like going to school or coming home from school or daycare, etc., evaluate their environment. Our nonverbal children are vulnerable. They need trustworthy, trained, patient staff or care. It's very, very critical. And as parents, we have to stay vigilant. Any time you witness, even in a neurotypical child, sudden behavioral change, it can signal mistreatment or something not right in their experience with that particular place, right? And this could even have to do with kids. It doesn't necessarily mean that, something is happening in every single situation. So I don't want to, implant like some, feeling of despair or concern that doesn't need to be there. I simply want to put out on the table that there are a lot of contributing factors into the types of behaviors that we exhibit, just ourselves as parents, as people, as human beings, right? And then by extension, that our children will exhibit, especially carrying the weight of having, I hate to use the term disability, but of having a condition that impacts them in the ways that autism does, right? So I'm only saying that if you're recognizing a pattern, don't shrug it off. This is also something that you have to take into consideration with all your children, but especially with your child who may not have the tools or the skills needed to fully communicate with you. Okay, the next component, communication. Communication is key. I'm sure you've heard this before, right? So when you have a child that has autism, borrowing a term from the video that I dislike, severe autism even, especially a nonverbal child, and they're displaying a lot of maladaptive behaviors, keep in mind, I have gone through this. I have a nonverbal child who has autism, right? So I've dealt with, hitting, kicking, biting, all of that, right? And I have largely brought that to heel. How? By what I'm telling you. And one of the most principal and important and foundational aspects of everything that I'm saying is this right here, communication. The very first thing you need to do is find a way for your child to express themselves, okay? Now, my advice, even though it's very low tech in, today's age of tablets and AIs and robots and flying cars, is a simple picture exchange system. It is the easiest, I think, and the quickest for your child to pick up. And this is coming from somebody who got both things simultaneously. Okay, when it dawned on me, in fact, when I realized, this is right before my son had started kindergarten. Okay, I realized that, well, actually, it didn't even start off as my idea. It was his aunt when he was even younger than that. Now that I'm thinking of it, it's all coming to me. She made him a board because she was doing his, before he was old enough for school, she was taking care of him for me during the day. And she made him a board of pictures of all of his favorite things, and he used it. And then that evolved into buttons, those little buttons that we saw going viral on social media where people were, putting derogatory statements in there for their dogs to, cuss them out, for giggles. Those buttons, right? I put phrases in there for my son, and he started to use them. And then I was like, oh yeah, we can do this, right? So step one, establish a way for your child to express themselves. I advise a picture exchange system. Now you will go to Amazon and you will type picture exchange system, and you will see a $140 product that you don't have to necessarily buy, because I bought it. And let me tell you, it's just simple picture cards with Velcro on the back. You could make it. The dividers, you could just buy some heavy duty binder dividers, get you a nice 3-inch binder, and, put some Velcro strips on there, little Velcro circles on the back of these printed cards. I would say you could get like a little plastic, like even if you could buy like the, from Michael's, they have like the little, laminating sheets that are, not very expensive. You can laminate the little cards that you can print off on the printer, put a little piece of Velcro on the back, get the binder, get the heavy duty plastic dividers, and just create category pages, food, signs, places, feelings, yes and no, right? create this binder. I'd be happy to show you mine. If you're interested in that, leave it in the comments. And use this binder and start off very, very simple with just yes and no, right? These are words that even if you have a nonverbal child, you might not think that they're picking things up, but kids are sponges, right? Instead of looking at your nonverbal child as though they can't, you should look at them like a monk, right? You know how monks go to the monastery and they don't speak? That's how I started looking at my baby. I call him my panda because his favorite movie is Kung Fu Panda. That's how I started looking at my panda, okay? Like he was a dragon warrior, a monk, because I'm thinking like how many thoughts. He must be like so wise, in his mind, because he's like seeing everything and he could just sit in silence and just has to just process things that are happening. Like, I don't know. Anyway, they pick up a lot more than you know. And I learned this after I started and built a foundation for communication with my son. I was shocked at how much he actually knew already just from, being a kid, right? So yes, communication, foundational, start off with a picture exchange system. And then once you have that solid foundation, your kid's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. I can tell you what I want, what I don't want. Stop. I need room. I need to go to the bathroom. I want to drink this. I want to drink that, et cetera, et cetera. Then introduce something a little bit more advanced like AAC. And there's some really great apps. I can give you some suggestions as well. If you want that, leave it in the comments. But yeah, you could get like a super cheap older iPad. It doesn't have to be something brand spanking new, or even an Android device. I know apps that are good for both because I've used both. And then you can move on to like AAC, which is going to be a lot more flexible and a lot more complex. And it's going to give them a lot more communicative freedom. Okay. Or communicative freedom. Right. Yeah. I already said this, but just to reiterate, you're going to start very simple. Yes, no, help, water, potty. Those would be the things that I would start with. Yes, no, help, water, potty, right? And then just build from there. And yes and no, you can get very far with yes and no. We got very far with yes and no. And, it is, man, I can't tell you how powerful and rewarding it is to finally be able to chip away at that wall that stands between you and your nonverbal child and like experience them. It's such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing. So do that. And as you do that, you're going to notice your child becoming more confident. They're going to develop a stronger sense of autonomy. You're going to see a lot less of those maladaptive behaviors, a lot less hitting, biting, and scratching. I mean, you have to imagine if you have other children who perhaps don't have autism, then this might be easier for you to see than if you have just only one child and your child has autism, right? You have to imagine what it is like to be a nonverbal 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. year old, right? You want to do this, but someone's making you do that. And you can't throw the normal tantrum that the 7-year-old would because you don't have the words for it, Or what if you have a stomach ache and someone's trying to, get you out of bed or take away your movie when all you really want to do is lay down and you don't feel good, right? It can create so much frustration just not being able to communicate with one another. So communication, I promise you, when you introduce some form of communication, even if it's just as simple as a red and a green square, meaning yes and no, your life will change with your child. It will be like day and like night, right? And you will see a huge reduction in the maladaptive behaviors. Okay, so I know in the beginning of the video, I said autism is a spectrum and that there's many different varieties of autism, and that's true. However, it's also true that there are some commonalities across the spectrum. And one thing that's been found to be very prevalent in a lot of children with autism is an issue with their gut microbiome, where they have a abnormally high prevalence of bad gut bacteria. Now, science is really starting to talk a lot more about this, and I'm super excited because I do have someone in my family who has studied the gut, and so kind of clued me into the importance of it, even though I didn't fully appreciate it at that time, the importance of it with respect to our whole body health. The gut is very closely tied to the brain and truly everything, right? Because it is the filter through which the nutrients that sustain us has to pass, right? Fundamentally for digestion. So the gut is very, 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 very important. And these children tend to have a very poor gut microbiome. So it's absolutely critical that to the best of your ability, and you don't have to be 100% perfect, but as much as you can, you need to have them eating as clean as possible. Now, I know that leucovorin, I know that leucovorin has been the buzzword all over social media, all over the news, especially with the president's recent announcement. But what I haven't heard talked about as much, and something that I think after having heard about it in, a few sparse places, something that I think is probably more important because it's going to impact the effectiveness of the leucovorin is the ways in which heavily processed fast foods, etc., the ways in which they can prevent this folinic acid from actually binding to the receptors that it needs to in the brain to provide that therapeutic benefit for these kids. So with that being said, if you are one of those autism parents who does now have a prescription and your child is now on the leucovorin, you really need to pay close attention to what your kid is eating, because what you're feeding your child could have a meaningful impact on the effectiveness of this pharmaceutical. So definitely do what you can. Your diet, it influences everything from your mood, your sleep. It can impact aggression, cognition. Do everything in your power to get rid of those heavily processed foods, get rid of those sugars, dyes, unnecessary additives, and whatever you do, focus on reducing any inflammatory foods. Another thing that's very common across the spectrum is oxidative stress and inflammation. So really try to, you could ask ChatGPT to create a meal plan in your budget that, focuses on, limiting any sort of inflammatory foods. Actually, there are foods that help with inflammation, help reduce inflammation that you could start to incorporate. So definitely do some digging and some research on that. If you guys want me to come back to you with some more, I'm not a nutritionist, but I've definitely done my due diligence, and I could speak from my personal experience and give some tips and tricks with respect to that if you guys are interested in that as well. But fundamentally, the diet is very important. Gut health is key. Definitely make sure to put a super, focus on that as well. Now, the video that brought us all here today. Now that I've gone through those components, now I feel free to give my comments more directly on that particular video. The child in that video is very clearly frustrated, okay? And I noticed that the mother did express that she had a lack of support services, that she didn't have access to the types of services that she felt would best help her, help her child. So I'm stalled when it comes to, not even just stalled. I'm hesitant to try and say, oh, she's not doing this or she's not doing that, because I don't know. I don't know what she's tried or what she's implemented. But what comes to my mind is, does this child, number one, have any means to communicate, right? Is everything okay at school? She mentioned that he has difficulties, with when it comes time to getting ready to go to school, etc. There was that clip in the video where, he's getting on the school bus and he's banging his head into the windows. Is everything okay at school? Kids can be extraordinarily cruel. And as I've told you guys several times throughout this video, imagine walking a day in your child's shoes. Imagine, hell, high school was brutal for a lot of people, right? Middle school, elementary school even. Kids can be cruel. Now imagine living a day in your child's shoes. You have no idea what they're hearing, what's being said to or about them or around them. You don't know what's hurting them inside, right? So when I see something like that, I'm wondering, is everything okay at school? I'm also wondering, what is his diet like, right? We just spent a big chunk of time talking about the importance of diet with respect to our mood, aggression, all of it, our entire body health, right? So, is he eating clean foods, or is he eating a lot of inflammatory foods? Is he having a lot of processed foods? I don't know. This is something that I think could be playing a part in that, right? He's nonverbal. We talked a little bit about the difference between anticipatory care or engaging care, right? Provisional care or engaging care. Is his care engaging or is it anticipatory? I don't know, right? If it's provisional and systematic, that could also be playing a part. He's 8, right? So he's at a phase now where he's learning to be more of an individual. And I have older kids, right? So I've gone through these phases. I know what they can be like, and they can be hard. With a neurotypical kid, they might even be harder, right? Because, I have a 8-year-old right now, and she will argue me down, okay? Over staying up late, going and getting a toy, getting us, so these things happen. Now your kid, imagine, doesn't have any words. How do they express these things? How do these things manifest, right? They can manifest as aggression, right? So again, back to the care. I don't know if it's engaging or if it's anticipatory. Does that mean that a parent is doing something wrong? I don't think so. Because as I said when I talked about it, I think that we can fall into a cycle of anticipatory or provisional care from love, right? My baby must be thirsty. My baby must be hungry. My baby loves this. I'm going to give them that, right? This is not you being a bad parent. This is you trying to be the best possible. You're trying to think of what your kid needs before they can say it, because they don't have the words to necessarily express it to you. However, this could be problematic as well, right? Because now you are creating a boundary of within which this whole person, this whole life is forming. And it's natural for kids to push against that wall. They do this, in a larger and larger degree as they get older and older, until they age out of that, wall, right? And then they start to build their own as adults, okay? So I'm not sure, right? What I want to say is that with all of that in mind, okay, I want you guys also to think about just the type of violence that people can perpetrate who don't have even one of the challenges or symptoms that children who have autism have to live with every day, right? Think about the type of violence and rage people are capable of expressing who are neurotypical, if you will, right? So it can't just be autism in my mind. I think obviously, like I said, the A in autism is for amplifier, right? That is very much true. And it definitely plays a factor, a big factor, but it's not the foundational factor. And I think that if we as parents focus more on that core, fundamental aspect of our child, their personhood, their needs, their wants, their mind, their heart, their soul, their spirit, if we focus there, then we can build a strong enough connection that it can help to mitigate some of these other challenges that autism is throwing our way. So I don't think that we have to be, stopped back, right, by autism, where we're stuck in this place and this is what it is, and now we just have to manage it. That to me is giving up, right? And as I said in the beginning, my child might have autism, but autism will never have my son. Never. I will never, ever surrender him to just being trapped within himself. I will always, always, always do everything that I can to position him to grow into being the best possible expression of him that he can, right? Whatever that is. I will love him wholly and unconditionally, even if he never speaks a word. But does that mean that I'm going to stop trying to find a way to communicate? Absolutely not. I don't care if I have to cut up pieces of puzzles and create new letters to figure out a way to get to my child, right? Broken black glass, fighting dragons, climbing mountains, crossing oceans. Remember, that's what it's about. So, yeah, I mean, fundamentally, that's where I want to leave it. Again, I don't want to admonish, attack, or criticize a family that's clearly in crisis. I instead wanted to use it as a moment to provide real value, okay? But what I will say is that, as parents, we are the protectors of our children. And in some ways, I feel as though these children with autism are being put out on the internet in a way that does not befit the true magnitude of their real character, if that makes any sense. And I'm trying to be very selective over my words, because again, the goal is not to talk down to anybody, but to be very, to be very frank. When I think of the many past, the present, and even the future obstacles that my son has to contend with, a black eye, a broken bone, as she expressed her son gave her, even a scar. See, that it's not going to really mean too much to me. And the reason, this may sound crazy, but it's not. The reason why is because my child is my child. And sadly, I've seen women give nothing ass men more chances than they would their own flesh and blood. And that could never be me. I would never give up on my kid or put my child out like that, right? So we need to check ourselves a little bit as parents, because there's a lot of, yes, it's hard. It's hard. I can't tell you it's not. It is. I've cried, sad, concerned, worried about the struggles my child is going to have to face, worried about a moment where I might not be there to face those challenges with him. And it scares me. But then I think to myself of all the nights that I begged the Lord to bless me with an unconditional love that would never leave me, right? And as far as I'm concerned, the Lord has given me my son. And in doing so said to me, show me that you deserve it. So that's what I'm saying to you. Be deserving of the unconditional and unceasing love that your child is giving you. Be be deserving of it every single day, and be proud and be strong and put your chin up. Yeah, it's hard when, your kid is in that phase where they're pooping all over everything. But why in the hell are you going to TikTok to cry about it? Don't do that. I mean, yes, we can talk about it. As I said, there's value in sharing experiences, but I don't think that we should get too comfortable making so many videos talking about how we just can't deal with this anymore. Because what other option do you have? It's not like this is a cell phone bill. It's your child. They're not going anywhere. So suck it up. Deal with it. Okay? You're going to be okay. Autism is reported to have a prevalence now of 1 in 32 children. What we need to be thinking as the parents of these children is what happens when our kids get older. As parents, we cannot afford to get caught up in these, dialogues or communication circles of can't, won't, too much, can't bear it anymore, woe is me. Yes, definitely we need somebody who we can vent to. Definitely we need to feel empowered to just be human, to let the veil down and be tired. That's totally fair. That's normal. But too much of that, indulging in too much of that content or that speak or that think can be very damaging, especially where we as parents need to be planning for our children's future, right? You need to be instead thinking of ways to get your health in order so you can live long enough to support them for as long as you possibly can, if that's what they end up needing. You need to be focused on building some sort of a financial contingency in the event that you pass before they do. You need to build a care fund, okay? Get some sort of a life insurance policy that you send specifically for your nonverbal or, autistic child or child with autism. Establish a care fund that will be there to take care of them when you are not. And you can get very specific with this. I'm sure that you can hop into any, Google search or, ask AI to help you navigate this, because I'm obviously not, licensed to give you guys any sort of financial advice, but I would say that you need to be thinking about the future and you don't need to be wallowing in despair. So you should be thinking about, how can you fund a care fund for your child? How can you get them as prepared as possible for day one, mommy or daddy is no longer here, right? You need to be working on training them every single day in the skills that they will need to be as independent as possible, and not, if you can, because I understand what it's like to have to work and also be a mom. If you can, you need to learn as much as you can about the different types of therapies that your child should be receiving: physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, all of these things. And you need to be trying to provide those same services as best as you can in the home as a continuation of those services that they're probably receiving, especially if they're in public school or if you have them in some sort of a therapy regimen, right? You need to learn about ABA therapy. I know that it's a touchy topic. I know it's a touchy topic. I know that there are parents out there who liken it to, dehumanizing their children or what have you. You can't make everyone happy, but here's what I'm going to tell you. There are people who are teaching their cat to pee on a toilet and flush it. Okay? That's a real thing. They're doing it. And their dogs. Okay? If people are doing that, and at the same time, there are people who are saying that their child can't, I think there's an issue with like priorities. I think that they should genuinely just shut up because it makes no sense, right? If there is a mechanism by which you can equip your child with different skills that are going to make them more independent or allow them to care for themselves, then you should explore it. 100%. You should become an expert at it. That's my mindset. Okay? I supplement all of my child's education and therapy as much as I can at home. I support it here in the home. I'm reading 3 different books on ABA therapy, learning about different speech therapy techniques. You have the whole internet in front of you. Use it. Learn what you need to learn to help your child be their best possible self, right? You can do it. Even if it's an hour a day, if it's 30 minutes a day, if it's something that you pick up and you're just implementing one strategy every week, it doesn't matter. Do something. Those small gains add up, and it's important. It's important that you take that responsibility on yourself because that's your kid. You have to. If you love them, you'll do it, and you can. Like I said before, I get being busy. I get being a single mom. I am one. Or even just being a parent in 2025. Everyone is working. Nobody has any time. Still, you have to make the time. You have to find the time. You have to find a way, right? There are times when your kid is going to be home, not going to be in school. You got them all summer. Whatever the case may be, find an hour a day to sit down with your kid and work with them. Work with them on things like eye contact. That is something that you can teach them, right? The way that I look at it, for those people who think of ABA as some sort of a horrible, cruel, dehumanizing thing, there was a time when I forget, what was it? Maybe it was about working out. I had read something that was talking about how people could be presented with a psychological stimulus and exhibit physiological responses. So, for example, they could be put into a mindset of thinking that they're running, believing that they're running and they're burning calories, really burning calories, right? Our brain, just by thinking through a process, is building a neuronal pathway, a electric connection that sensitizes our brain to being capable to activate that pathway in the event that it should need to be implemented. Okay? It's like, those crazy people who imagine, what if this, what if that, what if this, what if that? Those people probably will have, I don't know how many second, but some measurable advantage in the event that one of those events happen if they've thought through what they're going to do in that situation. Okay? Saying all of this to say that by utilizing ABA to teach your child different skill sets, you are, in effect, being a human TENS unit, sending an electrical pulse through a little neuronal channel in your child's brain that might be weak at first, but it will strengthen as you continue to repeat the implementation of that particular, strategy, lesson, what have you. It will build and it will build and it will build, and they will get the skills. Okay? My son could not clap, wave, touch his head. He didn't know how to sit still. All of these things I taught him. Okay? Here at home. I did. Okay? I literally made a whole Notion database built off of things that I've read in different books on ABA and other different types of occupational, physical, and speech therapy mechanisms or modalities or methodologies or whatever you want to call it. Okay, I don't know the appropriate word at this particular time, but I built an entire curriculum of things that I implement, and I just devote, 3 to 4 hours a day with him. And night and day, incredible progress every single day. He can clap now. He can wave. He can touch his head. I'm working on getting him to produce bilabial sounds, like these things. And I know that I will get him some stronger level of speech than what he has now. I don't know what it will be. And I don't like to think in terms of like, I need to see this type of an improvement, because I don't think that that's being genuine to my initial aim of wanting him to be the best possible expression of himself. Instead, I'm going to continue to try with love, patience, and no expectation, right? But incredible praise as we make one huge step forward after another, after another, after another, because that's truly what it's been, right? Had no idea about my son's ability to, like, if he could read words. I wondered that very often. He loves to watch different types of movies. I learned about Gestalt language processors. I definitely think he's a Gestalt language processor. And I learned about the ways in which sometimes for children with autism, it's easier for them to pick up more complex speech, I guess, as we would look at it, given the fact that we use more of an analytical mechanism by building our speech off of words that then form ideas, etc. They can come from a top-down approach, which is crazy when you think about it. Very impressive. Okay? But yeah, empower yourself. How do you empower yourself? Read as much as you can, learn as much as you can. I can definitely give you guys some book recommendations if you want as well. But I do want to wrap this video because now it's getting a lot longer than I had anticipated. Fundamentally, the underlying point is our children are in there. They're in there. Are you comfortable leaving them there alone? I love you. If you enjoyed this content, please make sure to comment, like, share, subscribe. This channel is brand spanking new, and I definitely plan to bring you guys a variety of different topics and talk about a whole bunch of different stuff with you guys as we grow this channel. And definitely, obviously, we will spend a lot of time probably talking about autism, given how close it is to me, being that my panda has autism. But yeah, I hope you guys have a beautiful day. And thank you if you stayed this long. I appreciate you.